welcome back to the I-5 Corridors Traffic Report. Tyson Alger here, joined by Shane Hoffman. That's a fresh little cut you got there, Shane. Tell me.
It's not my favorite, I might get home and trim it up a little bit more myself, but
you don't like it.
It works. There's a little bit more on the top than I would have liked.
I always feel like there is a bit of a kind of growing into it process.
You always need to give it, if not a few days, a week or two, right? My hair grows fast. It usually looks very different. But, I can't fade my own hair out. What I could do is I could go home and trim it a little bit.
It does look like, as it is particularly stormy here in Portland, though, like you might get a little bit of like wind whip in there.
Oh, yeah.
This could be good for you.
Who knows?
We're here on Wednesday. It's It's an interesting time in the sports calendar season because there was basketball on yesterday at 1:30 p.m. Nothing kicks off a season quite like a game in the middle of Las Vegas with nobody in attendance at 1:30 p.m.
In attendance, yeah.
I wouldn't blame a lot of people if they didn't even know the basketball season was starting yesterday. However,
much less on True TV.
Yeah. Even though like all the signs were there, it's November. There's a lot of Oregon Ducks who are injured. I mean, it just kind of feels like it's all there. They didn't look that bad though.
Yeah, actually, I guess it's really only two players that are injured right now.
Yeah, but I mean, like
for all the fuss that Dana made.
Yeah, but I was gonna say they're relatively important, which they could be for like their like longer term success, but for like the immediacy of the actual tournament. Is this a tournament that they're playing in, or is it like a showcase?
I think it was just a showcase game, but I'm hazy on it as well. It's Jackson Shelstad and Mookie Cook, so it's the Oregonian freshmen, both of whom are high 4 stars, depending on where you look, maybe some 5 stars on some sites.
I feel like basketball is the hardest one, much harder than football to like keep track of like what star somebody was, because there's quite a few different services out there.
Absolutely. Yeah, guys that probably wouldn't be playing a ton of minutes right now. I don't know. Maybe they would, but this is a deep team at those positions.
Georgia is not a good basketball team. You could see that they can't shoot.
Well, they think they can shoot. Maybe they can shoot, but some of those shots, the selection was questionable at best.
I think did you tweet like that poor iron or like the poor rim or
I did not.
Or maybe it wasn't.
I'm sure someone else did.
It was just like, oh my gosh. That being said, there was plenty of excuses for Oregon to lose that game. Mm-hmm. Those guys being out, the fact that they haven't been able to kind of run a full team at practice.
We saw at media day. there was, I think, the part that we saw, it
kind of felt like Dana was like bracing us up to like, hey, just in case, like it could go bad on Monday. That being said, N'Faly Dante had a pretty awesome double with 21 rebounds.
Career high.
I was just telling you before we recorded this, I don't know what Oregon's ceiling is this year, but if they can get that sort of baseline play out of N'Faly, and like I'm not expecting that many rebounds a game, but like this is a guy who is just kind of physically a freak out there compared to the rest of the kind of the competition that he's going to be facing, and he's just experienced at this point. And we saw that he was effective last year when he was healthy, and if they can get that out there, I think that you can at least kind of build around that a little bit as Oregon figures out what it wants to be.
I mean, he's at worst the second or third best big man in the Pac-12, and I think he's got a great shot, or great case rather, as the best. And anytime you have a guy that's the best or near the best at his position, that tends to be...
You can work with that.
Yeah. Right, because you know what that is. That being said, watching the other day, if he were to miss any extended amount of time, then it becomes Dana Allman Rubik's Cube time.
Right, and there was a moment in the first half where it was kind of a fast break. The guy went down in front of him, and Dante, like all he had to do was just like jump over him for like a 2-handed slam. And instead, like, it was like a sniper out of the, he just like goes in a heap and he grabbed his knee. And just for a second,
there's a lot of those where he just kind of goes to the sideline for a bit and he ends up being fine, but he's huge.
Yeah, man, I'm sure there's been stories written about, there's got to be people out there who just like teach big men how to fall. Mm-hmm. because there's some that just can't.
He needs to go to the Tua Tagovailoa Academy, judo falling.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's a little bit different on hardwood when you're 7 feet versus 6'1" on grass.
Were you offended at all that right before we started recording, I was like, oh man, I didn't think Rigsby had hops like that. And do you think that I was kind of doing the white guy bias there? Did I?
Well, I wouldn't blame you if you were.
Yeah.
You know who's more offended than me is, a good friend of the program, Jared Denny. Because Jared Denny loves Rigsby. And I was even texting him during the game. I was like, oh, Jackson's going to take this guy's minutes. And then Rigsby immediately, I think, ended up, from then on, being the highest scorer in the game. Yeah, it looked really good. I mean, the whole team as a whole, it was funny because another thing I was texting with Jared about is like, it wasn't too long ago that this team, I think it was 2 seasons ago, they blew out SMU in like a season opener. They hit a million threes, and then they sucked. But what was encouraging is that they were getting a good variety of shots on offense, and so the things that didn't seem as dependent on the team they were playing, because again, I don't know if Georgia's all that good, did impress me. What jumped out to you? Outside of the Dante
they were playing. This is gonna sound so stupid, but like they were playing pretty hard, like and just like getting to loose balls a lot. Like their get back on defense, you can always kind of tell really quickly if there's a disconnect between like the 5 that Altman's putting out there and like what he wants, and it felt like that this was relatively. Because this has kind of been a theme for the last few years of like the buy-in and the types of players that he wants on this roster. Like I was very encouraged by that game yesterday. Again, I think this is one that it really felt like that none of us would have been all that surprised had they lost that one, just because of the way it feels at the start of this season. And I know they it was a little bit of back and forth there in the middle before before finishing.
Holding a lead in college is extremely difficult.
Yeah, it's run here, run here, run here, run here. But yeah, that was a good win for them, and I really do think that if they can kind of sustain or at least like tread water until they get Shellstad back, because I think Shellstad's going to be a very good player for them. I think he's got Peyton Pritchard freshman year potential for the Ducks.
It's just kind of where does his minutes come from?
Correct. And if they can get Mookie in there, like I just think that he offers something that the Ducks really don't have in that kind of 6'7" wing. Although like Kwame was out there like knocking down some shots yesterday.
Yeah, he ended up only having 5, but both were encouraging because it was one, he took his defender off the dribble and like a pretty coordinated finish for a guy of his size who's raw, and then a catch and shoot 3 where he didn't hesitate. If he's a dude early, like that completely, for me at least, changes what I view this team as.
Right.
So yeah, to your point, I think that was definitely encouraging, and Mookie does bring something. He brings size and athleticism. The thing that was interesting to me is there's so much turnover yet again on this team, but the starting lineup, which yesterday was there you go, sponsor some lovely sparkling water. We'll work on that.
Probably sounds great on the audio.
Yeah, you get up right close with that.
Bubbly.
So they started the CMU transfer Jesse Zarzuela, who I thought looked really good. Like he only had like 5 points and a pair of assists, I think, but he ran pick and roll. He was unselfish and a kind of passer that they don't really have much of. Maybe Jackson's that guy. But then the rest of the lineup with Barthélemy and Cousinard and Biddle and Dante, like those 4 guys were guys that played a lot together last year because they were the dudes that kind of finished the year playing a lot.
Yeah.
So it's not as new of a starting lineup as it could have been, or maybe I foresaw at one point.
It's fascinating too of like how small they can be, but then like when you take into account if Kwame is going to be a good player, I think Biddle's going to be good this year too. Like he
looks good.
Yeah, they have some. That's like 3 guys 6'9" plus that can all clog the paint.
Yeah.
I would like to see Dante have a little bit more of a refined offensive game, but also he's just so damn strong that it doesn't matter for the most part. But that's really where you would like to see Oregon be able to kind of knock down some of the outside shots a little bit more. Yeah,
right. It was so funny talking to another one of their bigs, the new guy Mo Diawara at Media Day, and one of us asked him about Dante on the court because they're friends off the court. And he's like, he's got this thick accent, but he's like, you have to double when he gets down there because he'll kill you. Like, it's a murder every time he gets someone down there. And again, it doesn't look pretty, but it kind of is. And Biddle can do a little bit of that too. If Biddle can hold up on defense on the perimeter, which he's been able to do at times, because he can also shoot a little bit. Like, he's a pretty interesting piece. And being able to start him next Dante, again, if it doesn't hurt you on defense, that can have a lot of advantages on offense.
Getting back to just the basketball season just being such a just kind of a wet fart to the start of the year. Like who do they play? Because it's like you have this anonymous game in Vegas against like what is kind of a big name school, but they're not very good anyways. And then it's like, who do they got?
Yeah, I'll take it away real quick if you don't mind.
Be nice about the Grizz, but
right, Montana on Friday.
Yeah,
that's their home opener. Tennessee State a week later. So there's not many games. Also, they're gonna play 3 games in 2 weeks here. Then it's Florida A&M, and then it's Santa Clara, and then Michigan on December 2nd. That'll be their 6th game of the year, and that's the first game. You can count the Georgia one, but since then that'll
with
be
like any degree of difficulty.
Well, again, they've dropped games like this in the past. But I was gonna say about the Georgia game. We left media day being like, oh, is this another one of these years where it's going to be all these injuries? They're going to start out behind the 8 ball. And starting at 1-0 against a team that I know we don't think is very impressive, at least they're not starting behind.
Yeah, exactly.
They could go into that Michigan game 5-0.
Well, and to further the point, you had a profile this week, or I don't know if profile is the right word, but you had a nice feature this week on Oregon assistant coach Mike Menenga. And a lot of it was kind of just through this baseline idea that you and I had talked about of they've had so many assistant coaches the last few years come and go.
Yeah.
Why has this guy been here for 10 years? And like you could get into like a lot of the basketball pieces of it, which you did, but like part of it too is that like him more than any coach that we've really seen on like either men's basketball or football staffs like really just freaking loves Eugene. Like he goes out kayaking, like he loves the outdoors, like he has like a very visible life here. And as we were editing that story, you and I were kind of talking about like how much in this story like do we need to like talk about the fact like the stuff that we've just been drilling kind of in almost every Oregon basketball story for the last 2 years of they haven't been to the NCAA tournament or they're coming off of this bad streak or blah, 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 blah.
This fine streak, to be quite honest, that it looks bad in comparison.
Correct. And it's just like, part of it too is just like, I'm assuming, most people reading this story know those parameters already, but also it's like, sometimes it's just fun to like, or it's just not, or it's nice to avoid that narrative from like the start and like getting this win first game of the year means you don't have to just jump right back into that again too.
Well, guess who else knows that? Like the coaches know that. They are very aware that the last few seasons have been underwhelming compared to the rest of the Altman era. Mike, as I was leaving, I finished up an interview. We're walking back out to the court. He's like, "We need that, Georgia."
Yeah, right.
He's like, "We need that," and I was like, "Oh." The fact that he's like, it sounded that dire. I was like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
they got it. I mean, like, it makes sense.
And he probably at that point too. He probably didn't know like what the heck they were going to get out of their team on Monday either. Just at that point, we didn't know if Dante was going to be available because like he had been kind of nicked up. Like, I'm sure like they're kind of just going, "Ooh."
Yeah. It felt a lot different than last season because they played 11 guys, and they essentially played almost everybody that was healthy who was a scholarship player. I think Reichel even got in there, so maybe it was 12 guys. But everybody got minutes. Like they got Tracy and Oquendo off the bench, and Diawara played, and everybody had moments. So this could be a deep team when healthy. Again, we talked about the freshmen not being there, but it's hard to know.
Yeah.
You hope they stay healthy, but it was an encouraging start, and I think, again, they just need a good start here, even if there's going to be some bumps along the way, because that's what I think the fans need to see, to be quite honest, because it's been a lull.
Before we move on to football, do you have any last points you want to make about this Oregon basketball team?
I just think I'm excited to watch them, and I haven't been able to say that much. I also like that I at least entered this season with kind of devoid of expectations, which was not the case the last two. So I think that makes, for myself, a viewing experience that's more positive. I
will say it is November 8th today, and I have yet to write that with Final Four expectations. Or what was that in your?
Well, I had a Frank Kepnong feature 3 years ago at this point.
Yeah, that wasn't my finest editing.
I think I said back to the tournament was.
I think you said Sweet 16 or something like that, and then I was like, "Nah, baby, we're going Final Four."
And hey, we're not good that year.
No, they didn't make the tournament, did they?
Or
did they?
No, they didn't. That was not. Whatever. I get it mixed up.
Anyways, The Cal game wasn't very close, was it?
No, I was suggesting earlier this week that we had such opposing takes on that game that maybe we, put the audio in of our discussion about that, whoever was wrong. But, you got some help there from a defensive touchdown, so the end, it was 63-19. Didn't look as bad as it could have, maybe.
Yeah.
Pretty big blowout, though. I got to take credit for that one.
I mean, considering Cal becomes just the third team this season to score more than 10 points on the big vaunted Oregon Ducks defense.
That's right.
Nah, I mean, that was a blowout. It was somewhat interesting for like the first 5 minutes of the game. Wasn't quite expecting Cal to have the ball in Oregon territory after Bo Nix's first pass.
No.
But I asked Bo after the game, I was like, that's like when you go talk to Tez, like, was that making up for it? And he was like, yeah.
Yeah,
like,
you think?
Yeah, he was like, if I have to throw a pick every first throw of the game and that's what I get out of it, like, heck yeah, I'll take that. Yeah, I thought that was, I think it's kind of something that we say often at this time of the year, but it's when you're a number 5, number 6, number 7 team in the country and you're playing teams that aren't close to that caliber, you want to see your team dominate.
Yep.
And that's what the Ducks did. And I liked that they had to kind of take a punch first before going out and scoring 63 points.
What was cool to see, too, is that they have this quote-unquote adversity early. They had a rough stretch. They had 2 turnovers. That's a team that had been tops in the nation or second in the nation in turnover differential this year. They kind of got those out of their system, and it didn't matter, and it still ends up being a 40-plus point win. Some of these teams that are top 10, they, struggle for half and, like, they're down at half, or it's a one-score game at half. For Oregon to really struggle at times, still be up big at half, and then not lay off the gas in the second half, again, it's every week with this team where there's something new you kind of like.
It's really easy to kind of see one thing and then see a positive result and be like, oh yeah, like this is how it's happening. But like you'll see in the Monday recap videos that they put out where it's like in the team meetings and like you'll see a lot of that kind of cliched like always finish,
right.
Like don't stop, like but then you see the result on the field and you're like, oh man, like these coaches like really have these guys dialed in, which they 100% do, but it's just been kind of, it's fascinating to see that process go into it because outside of really that Texas Tech game, I think Oregon's played good football in almost every quarter this year, and I include that Washington game. We can go back to that, but like Oregon didn't play bad in that Washington game. I thought, and we all wrote this at the time, that was 2 very good football teams that played good football, and it came down to like game decisions. I mean, it's just the flow of the game. Like
that was one of their best pressure games on defense, and it didn't show up in the points allowed or even really in Penix's stat line, but that was also like that. People are going to talk about Penix and his Heisman moments, and like he had a big night against USC, but that Oregon game, that's the game that it should be kind of recurringly mentioned.
Well, and I mean, just the USC Washington game, obviously Washington finished them off there in the final quarter, but there was a lot of people, including us, who wouldn't have been surprised had USC won that game, just because Washington has looked very up and down since that Oregon game. I do think that this week is going to be like the big prove it week for the Ducks, though, of just, they went out and they did that to Cal, who really cares nationally about Cal, like no offense. They did it to Utah. Utah's a great team, but also people know that they're a limited team.
Right. We talked about how we thought that was a little bit overhyped of a win.
I think the immediacy of this week, obviously it would have been better had USC won. And kind of at least still been in.
Absolutely.
But
because they still only have 2 Pac-12 losses, so if they had won, it's like, whoa, what do we have here?
But so now we are going to get a 7:30 game. They're going to be the main game going. I hate and love that at the same time.
As a reporter, you hate that.
Yeah.
As someone having to write about a big game, maybe you. I guess it goes both ways.
Yeah.
I mean,
but I think that this is. I think that this could be, assuming that USC tries. Because there's so much talk of like, oh, like Caleb Williams should just stop, or whatever. I think that this is a huge game for Oregon's defense. Like this is like look how good we are.
Yes,
type of game. Because I think they can do that, and I think especially with how relentless Oregon's offense is, Oregon's defense is going to be able to like throw some punches, and I think that this isn't going to be a close game. I think it's going to be a blowout.
So, is there a number points allowed wise that would make you feel really good about the defense leaving that game, given that for their struggles outside of 24 points at Notre Dame on the road in a weird game, they've scored, I believe, 40 plus in almost every game?
So what was it? It was Cal 50, USC 50, Cal 49 a couple weeks ago. So 20. Yeah. So 20 points.
20 points.
20 points. If they can keep USC below 20 points, I think that. But like I think that'd be a good effort. But like I think this is going to be one of those ones where like this is going to be like a 48-10 game.
You think it's going to be that lopsided?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to disagree with you again. Okay. So maybe we will have some audio to play.
Yeah. No, this will be good.
I think this is a good defense. I think 10 points would be.
Do you think this USC team is built to withstand not being relevant?
No. And I agree with where you're coming from with that. Caleb Williams is still Caleb Williams. It's still a really dynamic offense that can run the ball, and then we've seen what they can do through the air. I'm thinking it more like if they can keep them under 30, like that's a good benchmark.
Okay.
So I'm thinking, if it's 24, if it's 21, 10, I'd be shocked, and that'd be amazing. I just don't know if I...
Yeah, I mean, like I'm not confident in my prediction.
Sure. But hey, you gotta take some shots, right?
Yeah, but I do think that there's, even Lanning acknowledged it in the press conference yesterday of just saying like this is an important recruiting game for us.
Oh yeah,
and I think there's like shared respect between Washington. There's shared respect between Oregon State. I think Oregon has always just kind of been like if we can fuck USC over, like let's do it.
That's a good point because Cristobal was big on that, as he was with other rivalries or quote unquote rivalry adjacent, whatever you want to call USC. That's a good point. Like Lanning, I think it'll be Colorado energy for this one.
Yeah, 100%.
Where he's like, this team, like let's drive the stake through their heart. One thing that I'm gonna be watching for. And I'm just putting out like a little warning on this now. They fired their defense coordinator, Alex Grinch. I wonder, because this happens sometimes with teams and units.
A little Ewing theory. I do wonder if they look a little bit... Again, Oregon should tear them apart, and I think largely will. But I'm not sure this is a 60, 70-point game for Oregon's offense. If I could see a world in which Oregon gets... Wait, like 80, 90?
No, I think, again, I don't think USC's defense is any good, and I don't think losing the head coach makes them better in the long run. I could just see that immediacy of 1 week of them being really motivated. I'm just putting that out there.
Do you know what the weather's supposed to do?
I don't. Hopefully not a monsoon for your sake.
Dude, this is way off topic, but I was shocked at how good the weather was at Autzen on Saturday, considering the drive down. That was...
it had kind of petered out by the time the game started.
Oh, my God. I stopped at the Corvallis exit for gas, and I had to, like, hold on to the car because of the wind.
Right.
It was blowing.
The thing we kind of glossed over about the Cal game, like, just these little check marks... we've had a lot of number check marks about Oregon and how good they are. Like, if your second or third receiver, whatever you want to call it, Tez Johnson, can go 180
oh my God, right?
and multiple touchdowns, that's, usually a good sign.
Yeah, it's not bad.
And then in terms of tape for the NFL, that was probably Bonick's best game of the year in terms of just, whoa.
That second touchdown he had to him where it was just... I mean, like, Bo goes out there and he makes some plays that, like, you just go, like, how the hell did he do that? His second touchdown to Tez looked like the easiest football play I've ever seen in my life. It was just red zone, fade, hike, easy throw, easy catch. It looks like they've done that in their backyard a million times.
Yeah.
And
did you know they were brothers?
Really? I had no idea. Were.
Are.
Yeah. But I think that's the type, like, making that type of thing look easy is where I was like, because like
it was an end zone fade to a 5'9" guy.
Yeah. And earlier in the year we were harping because there wasn't. I mean, all year there hasn't been much to criticize Knicks about, but it was like that he was missing some guys a little bit deeper. He hasn't been doing that nearly as much. Like he's been hitting like guys. He's pretty dialed in, is what I've seen, and I do think that I don't know. I'm still a little mixed on what his NFL future potential might be. But I think he is improved. Like I think he's noticeably improving still, which is impressive. Like given his age too, you know.
Yeah.
I think there's still some ceiling there.
We talked last week about the Bo Nix bias and how a lot of what's made him so good is just the sheer completion percentages, the command of the offense, and how much he's changing things at the line of scrimmage, which I think I've been looking for more and more in these games. And part of it's because we're seeing more behind the scenes with those videos they're putting out. And no hyperbole here. That play he had where he ducked under the that's one of the freakiest plays I've seen a quarterback make in several years. Yeah. That to be moving at that speed and then have the wherewithal to even try that. Because I know linemen are big, but he's 6'2", 6'3", and he made it look so effortless and then just whipped the ball. I mean, that was a really cool play.
He has so the second billboard, the one that's in Dallas, where it's his arm is on the other one.
Yeah.
It's so funny because I can't get that image out of my head sometimes when I'm seeing him throw, because like he is able to, and I'm not comparing him to Patrick Mahomes, but his arms does things similar to his where it doesn't quite necessarily matter where the rest is lined up.
Right.
As long as he's got that elbow up and the ball up, he's still able to like get it off at like certain angles. And even on that one, like he was going down one way and he was firing it off that way, and he's still able to get a substantial amount of zip on it where you go, oh, like that's a really good play. Like that's something that a lot of people can't do.
Yeah, it's not quite Caleb Williams exorcist,
right?
But it's really impressive. And yeah, I can't figure out the NFL thing with him either. I think not dissimilar to many other NFL players at all positions. I think it's going to be completely dependent on where he goes.
Yeah.
The coaching, the situation. But I think just if you're talking about this team as a whole, I mean, you can't be asking for much more than what he's given you. So I think he'll really relish that spotlight against Caleb Williams. I think Dan Lanning will talk a lot about that before and after this game, because Dan's been a huge proponent of Bo Nix and pushing that kind of national discourse about him.
I think my other takeaway from the game is Oregon is going to have a really good quarterback in 2024.
Okay, go.
And I say that because, one, I think Ty Thompson looked pretty good. Again, it's too small of a sample size to really say, like, this kid can do it. But it's one of the first times that I've seen him where, like, if you were just to turn on the game, you wouldn't go, that's the backup. Like, his feet looked confident. Like, he looked smooth. He wasn't seeing headlights. And, like, he was zipping the ball on a few of those throws. So I think that he's a quarterback that can be in a mix to start at a good Division I school. I also think that Oregon's still going to be completely in play for the best transfer quarterback on the market.
Yeah.
Like essentially what I'm saying is I think the floor is going to be pretty high, because if Ty Thompson ends up starting for the Ducks, it means that like
is the floor the ceiling in this case?
The ceiling is the roof, or what was the Michael Jordan? Yeah, the ceiling is the roof.
Oh yeah, I completely botched that. Whatever.
Yeah. So did MJ.
He did.
You miss 100% of the shots.
Something like that. Yeah, no, and they're letting Ty Thompson do a little bit more than he was able to do, like when Cristobal would put him in there, and it's like, it would seem like even the line is blocking less well, and like the running backs are not running as hard, and it was all around a bad.
Dude, that's so funny you bring up the line. I remember that. It was just like anytime Ty would come in, it was just like the line would sag towards the
I know part of that was because they were bringing backups in, but when Ty would come in the games, you're like, okay, Oregon's done scoring for the day.
Yeah.
Now it's like another touchdown maybe, right?
My favorite was someone used to always tweet whenever Jeff Locke would come in to replace Marcus Mariota, be like, oh, here comes a human victory cigar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, they will absolutely bring someone in. But I think Dan Lanning and whoever is in charge of that will do that with the understanding, or not the understanding, with the thought that if Ty's better than this guy, we'll start Ty.
Yeah.
But if Ty's that good, he should be able to beat out the guy.
I don't think they would have any apprehension of bringing somebody in, and if Ty's better, not starting him. But
no, that's a good takeaway, because that was probably the one or maybe the second cleanest he's looked in a game, or it's right up there. I mean, he looks great.
It is nice. Like, I think you can objectively at this point say that we have seen better examples of this staff developing guys than the previous staff. Because there's still a lot of Cristobal dudes like on this roster, and like a lot of them have gotten a lot better over the last couple of years. Like even like a guy like Jeffrey Bossa, you know, like. This is a well coached team, and it's fun. It's really even fun to just watch them on defense because there's like
they hit hard.
They hit hard.
Jamal Hill's another one.
They wrap up everyone. Like there's hardly any times where like they hit and bounce off. There's none of those like Justin Flo tackles where you're just trying to like hit stick somebody or you blow off into the sidelines. Like it's just like very sound football.
Yeah, and you see it because they're playing freshmen and they're not afraid to play freshmen. Overall, very impressed. And again, I think this is the week for the defense, like we said, to kind of put a bow on it.
I had a cooking tragedy this week.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah.
What happened? I
was at Safeway, and they had these really nice looking chuck roasts on sale, like prime grade. Like 3 pounds was like $15 or so. Okay. And I was like, and I have a sous vide that I got for Christmas a few years ago.
Have you used it much?
I used it a lot like the first year,
okay.
And then it like I probably, as anybody who got those things, you kind of go through phases of it. But I had been craving like some like good like roast beef sandwiches. And so I was like, oh, I'll do this chuck roast. I'm going to do it for like 36 hours. Wow. Because that's the thing that with the sous vide and the chuck roast is if you do it for a long time, then it breaks down kind of like a prime rib would. And so I had it going, and long cooks are hell for me because I have zero patience and I like to eat.
You cook to eat.
Yeah, I cook to eat, baby. I'm a hot and fast guy.
Something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Anyways, I had it going for like the entire day, getting ready for bed, top off the water because it evaporates overnight. Wake up in the morning, the machine's not going, and the water's at like 70 degrees. Too much of it had evaporated, and so it shut off. And so I spent a solid hour like trying to find like any horror stories of like if I did eat this, you know, I was in my head. I'm like, okay, so I went to bed at like 11. It's like
worst case.
It's like 7 o'clock now. The thing probably went for another 2 hours, so it's only been sitting here in lukewarm water for 3. Yeah, it's got to get thrown out.
You know, there's no sponsors or ads on this podcast, but the way you sometimes introduce food and cooking into it, it feels like one of those ads where like, Tyson, have you had an issue with anyone breaking in your home? Like, it goes on to be like a Simply Safe ad, you know? Yeah,
exactly.
Like, wait, it's like you're selling a product somehow there.
My place in Manhattan Beach. I'm doing my Rusilla there. So I was looking forward to discussing what was going to be really great sandwiches this week at the end of the podcast, and I failed. So that's what I didn't eat this week.
It's been a tough run for you, man. Wrongly predicting that Cal would keep it close. Roast beef failure. Now you're thinking that USC might only score 10 points on a Saturday.
Yeah, but like that works out well for me here on a Tuesday or on a Wednesday.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because like, oh man, that corridor.
Firing from the hip midweek.
And like if it happens, so I'm trying to be the Northwest Plashke is what this is.
As the season, well, let me ask you this. Now that we've taken our cooking detour already, has this season felt quicker than most for you?
100%.
Why do you think that is?
Because I'm 34 now.
Really? You're 34. Jesus Christ, man.
Yeah, you didn't come to my birthday. You would have known that.
Hey, I had to... Shit. Fuck, you got me.
Well, I don't think this is the fastest a season has gone, but it's a very fast one for me. I think there's enough different in this with it being the first time with this coaching staff and all that it kind of gives you some different markers. But
when you're not the day-to-day beat guy that you were in the past in some regards, and you're a little bit more kind of from a distance, does that make it go faster?
It makes it go way faster because like you in real world, like you view something like 3 weeks as like not that much time passing, but like in a college football season, like that's that's a quarter of a month goes by and everything can completely change. You know what I mean? Like if you're not paying attention and you're not close to it, it can feel like it's moving very quickly. Because like there's 3 games left? No, 4 games. USC, Arizona State, we're at
3
games. Holy shit! Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah.
What'd you eat this week? We're gonna close on that.
Okay, let me think. Oh, I made chicken adobo the other night.
Ooh.
The sauce didn't quite get to the level.
What is adobo sauce?
It's the base is kind of soy sauce, vinegar, brown sugar.
Oh, that sounds great.
It's really good. The consistency didn't get quite where I wanted. I think just the type of pan I used, but it turned out good. I've been loving like Greek flavors in food lately, so I get this I'll get some like pita bread, and I'll make like a very acidic kind of cucumber, feta, tomato salad thing. Put that on there, put some hummus on there, and put some like nicely seasoned chicken on there, and it's kind of like a wrap almost.
Dude, that sounds excellent.
Yeah, those have been, and it's good for me because it's like, it's whole grain pita too. I feel good about that, and it just smacks. So that's a good lunch.
Okay.
Stuff like that. I'm trying to spend less money on groceries because it's just such a big expense for me because I cook to eat also like you. I don't think so. I don't think everybody does, but I think we are cooked eaters.
I think I'm going to join the pro pickleball tour. By the way, that's what it was my birthday last week, and we went and checked out the People's Court on 82nd.
Mm-hmm. That I was not at.
That you were not at because you're just here for the money of the corridor, which is pouring in. That place is printing money.
Yeah.
It's.
I'll have to check it out.
It was completely full. They have like a restaurant. They have a restaurant bar. They have like arcade and pinball. I don't know. It was a cool spot. Like
pickleball content will surely bring in more subs.
Oh yeah, no, I think that's really what is going to bring us to the top. So
yeah, what you give people that no one else can.
Yeah. So next week on the I-5 Corridor Pickleball Adventures,
well, before you say thanks for listening, you have some cool stuff coming though.
Oh, dude, yeah, this is actually going to be a good week. If you're listening on Wednesday, we are going to have a profile on Oregon cornerback Kyrie Jackson come out on Friday. Before that, I also talked to Josh Wilcox about the award that Oregon has dedicated in the honor of his father, Dave Wilcox, who
Didn't
passed.
even know about this one.
He passed I believe it was last spring. They honored Josh and his mom at the game on Saturday, and I caught up with him today. Just really, really great conversation about his dad playing. Josh's experience playing for the Ducks, and really kind of what that move from Dan Lanning to honor his dad meant to him and his family. So that'll probably be coming on Thursday. So.
And you have one more? Is it men's hoops?
Oh yeah, well,
I don't want to tease that too early. But...
Well, I'm trying to figure out when I should do that because if neither of them are playing.
Oh well, you're giving away your hand.
Yeah, I know, but like if people have come this far into the podcast, like I want to reward them a little bit. I'm working on a Jackson Shellstad Mookie Cook profile.
Yeah,
that's gonna be good, I think, but they might not play till. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, coming sometime soon.
Yeah, thanks for listening.